Who hired her? This place is a joke, sneered one of the executives as they tossed their empty coffee cup on the ground. The woman they were mocking silently picked it up, her hands clad in faded yellow gloves, her uniform neatly pressed. Little did they know, the woman they just disrespected was not the cleaning lady, she was their boss. What happened next shook the entire company to its core, delivering a lesson no one would ever forget. It was 7 a.m. on a crisp Monday morning in New York City. Downtown Manhattan buzzed with energy, the heart of corporate America pulsing with ambition and caffeine. In the gleaming halls of Hawthorne Global Solutions, a leading Fortune 500 company, suits shuffled through the revolving glass doors. Executives, managers, and interns hurried to their desks, coffee in hand, eager to dive into another chaotic work week. But this Monday morning was different. Something was about to happen, something that would expose the deepest cracks in the company's glossy facade. At the far end of the lobby, a woman named Cassandra James silently entered. She was a tall, striking black woman in her late 40s, with smooth skin and a sharp, calculated gaze. Today, however, she was almost unrecognizable. Instead of the power suit she usually wore as CEO, Cassandra was dressed in a simple blue cleaning uniform, her hair tucked into a cap. She pushed a mop bucket as she quietly observed the bustling office. She wasn't here to clean floors. Cassandra had spent months hearing whispers about racism, toxic behavior, and outright disrespect toward minority staff members, particularly the janitors and cleaning crew. She had seen reports of dismissive attitudes from high-ranking executives, but the complaints were always dismissed as misunderstandings. When Cassandra confronted her leadership team, they brushed it off. "These things happen, Cassie. Don't make it bigger than it is," said Michael Thompson, her chief operations officer, a tall, cocky white man in his 50s, always clad in expensive pinstripe suits. His dismissiveness had been the tipping point. So Cassandra devised a plan. For one day, she would disguise herself as a cleaning lady to see the company's true culture for herself. No meetings, no power suits, no nameplate on the door. Just her and a mop. By 8 a.m., Cassandra had stationed herself on the 23rd floor, the executive wing. This was where the top players roamed, senior managers, VPs, and board members. It didn't take long for the ugliness to appear. "Hey, you missed a spot," barked Scott Langley, a senior VP of marketing. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with graying hair, his tone laced with irritation. Cassandra looked up from the corner she was mopping and saw Scott pointing at a non-existent stain near his office door. He was surrounded by two colleagues, laughing smugly as if Cassandra's presence were a punchline. "Sorry about that," Cassandra replied softly, lowering her head. She knew the game. People like Scott wanted dominance. A woman like her, black, middle-aged, and seemingly powerless, was the perfect target. Scott shook his head, muttering, "They'll hire anyone these days." Cassandra bit her tongue, rage bubbling under the surface. If only he knew who she really was. The day only got worse. Throughout the morning, Cassandra faced sneers, dismissive comments, and outright disrespect. She was ignored when she offered a polite "good morning." Someone left a crumpled fast food bag on the conference table without a second glance, as if she were invisible. "Is she allowed up here?" whispered Kimberly Evans, the head of public relations, her perfectly manicured nails tapping her phone screen as Cassandra passed. Kimberly was a tall, blonde woman with icy blue eyes and a reputation for her ruthlessness. Cassandra's heart pounded, but she stayed calm. Every cruel word, every degrading glance only fueled her resolve. At noon, Cassandra headed to the employee cafeteria to observe the broader company culture. She moved discreetly, pushing her mop cart, blending into the background. She watched as employees of all races sat together, chatting and laughing, except for the cleaning crew who occupied a lonely corner of the room. Cassandra noticed how they were ignored, almost ostracized, as if they were a separate class altogether. Then it happened. A young black janitor named Marcus, no older than 25, accidentally bumped into Scott Langley as he exited the cafeteria. "Watch it, boy," Scott growled, his voice loud enough to echo across the room. The room went silent. Marcus froze, his face pale, unsure how to respond. Cassandra's blood boiled. She watched as Scott brushed off his expensive blazer, glaring at Marcus like he was dirt. The young man's hands trembled, his eyes darting around the room, searching for help. No one moved. Marcus whispered, "I'm sorry, sir." Scott scoffed and walked off, leaving Marcus humiliated and alone. That was it. Cassandra had seen enough. By 4 p.m., Cassandra had changed out of her cleaning uniform. She now stood in her corner office, dressed in an immaculate navy suit and stiletto heels. Her assistant had gathered the senior leadership team for an emergency meeting. The executives, including Scott, Michael, and Kimberly, entered the conference room, exchanging confused glances. Cassandra stood at the head of the table, her arms crossed. "Sit down," she said firmly. "What's going on, Cassie?" Michael asked, smirking. Cassandra held up a cleaning glove. "You're all probably wondering why you saw a new janitor walking around today," she said, her voice icy. "Well, let me clarify something. That janitor was me." The room fell dead silent, eyes widened. Scott shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I spent the day as part of the cleaning crew," Cassandra continued. "And what I witnessed, the disrespect, the racism, the entitlement, was disgusting." Kimberly opened her mouth to protest, but Cassandra silenced her with a glare. "You think you can treat people like they're beneath you because of their uniforms, their skin color, their position?" Cassandra's voice rose. "That ends today." She turned to Scott. "Scott, you called a young black man boy today. Do you deny it?" Scott stammered, his face turning red. I didn't mean..." "Save it. You're suspended, effective immediately," Cassandra said coldly. Michael tried to interrupt. "Cassie, don't you think..." "Michael, you've ignored every complaint about this toxic culture. You're fired." The room erupted into gasps. The news of Cassandra's reveal spread like wildfire through Hawthorne Global Solutions, dominating water cooler conversations, social media buzz, and even industry headlines. Employees praised her boldness, and many felt vindicated knowing that toxic leaders like Scott Langley and Michael Thompson were finally removed. But just as Cassandra thought the dust was settling, she received an anonymous letter at her office the following week. The envelope was plain, but inside was a chilling message. "You think you won, but you have no idea what's coming." Attached was a flash drive. Intrigued, Cassandra inserted it into her laptop. On the screen, video footage appeared. Grainy security camera clips showing Michael and Scott in private meetings. But what caught her attention was the paperwork they exchanged: contracts, offshore accounts, and evidence of embezzlement. Her heart raced. They hadn't just been bullies, they were criminals. Without hesitation, Cassandra called her legal team. Over the next few days, an internal investigation revealed the shocking truth. Michael and Scott had been funneling millions out of the company for years, covering their tracks with fake projects and fabricated reports. The racism and abuse of power were just a symptom of their greed. In a dramatic twist, Cassandra held a press conference to expose their crimes. The media exploded with headlines. "CEO who disguised herself as cleaner uncovers multi-million-dollar fraud ring." Scott and Michael were arrested in front of cameras, their reputations and careers destroyed. Cassandra stood strong, a symbol of justice and resilience. Hawthorne Global Solutions emerged stronger than ever. Cassandra implemented new policies for transparency, diversity, and inclusion, transforming the company into a leader for ethical business practices. The cleaning crew, once invisible, were celebrated as an integral part of the team. As for Cassandra, she became a global icon, delivering keynote speeches and inspiring leaders around the world. Her legacy was clear. Real power doesn't come from titles, it comes from standing up for what's right.